As artists, we've all asked ourselves, what's the one thing I can make that truly fuels me? The thing that gives new inspiration, that makes me feel alive. For us, we realized it wasn't just about the work, it's about connection. That spark when you see yourself in someone else's struggle, someone else's rebellion. This podcast is our act of rebellion against the silence of creating alone. We hit record and said, just publish. At its core, Rebel Artists Through Time is about building a community of creators, past and present. We dive into the lives of history's rebels, artists, filmmakers, musicians, and writers, because their echoes are still with us. Their stories fuel ours. And as we tell them, we shine a light forward toward the new voices emerging today. It's our way of saying, you're not alone in the struggle. You're part of the lineage of legends. And if you've ever felt restless, misunderstood, or on fire with an idea you just couldn't put down, you're already one of us. This is Rebel Artists Through Time.
Well, I played for a private party on Saturday with these really, really bizarre group of people. There were like Canadians there and Russians and French.
All together in Paris.
All together in Paris. And, so people in Canada might remember the conservative leader before Pierre Poilievre, who was Erin O'Toole. Anyway, so usually politicians, for some reason, they get consulting jobs after they retire. And there was this French guy who was at this. They were all quite wealthy people, and this French guy was talking to me. He said, "Oh, you're Canadian?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you know who Erin O'Toole is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know who Erin O'Toole is." He said, "Well, he works for me." Erin O'Toole's boss was there. It's the owner of some French consulting company.
That is so bizarre.
It's really bizarre, yeah. So that was
Yeah.
I went to see Sinners.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I was like, I went to see it with a friend, and he said, he kind of summed it up for me because he said it was really good until the vampires showed up.
I have unique feelings about that one too. I don't know about you, but I'm not as positive as everyone else.
Me neither.
I thought it was a fine movie. I thought it was good. I thought it was fun, but
it wasn't mind-blowing. It could have been a lot better, I think.
Quickly, if anyone doesn't want to hear spoilers for Sinners, click off now and come back in maybe 5 minutes. I guess we'll quickly just do a spoiler recount of Sinners. Do you remember that scene where they go through the barn and it does like the musician time travel?
Yeah.
I thought that was so stupid.
It was pretty dumb.
Like, okay,
yeah.
I get the intent. I get the artistic intent. I get what the director's trying to do. It's like trying to use music as a way to collectively connect cultures and people through time. That's a cool idea. It's a cool intent. However, I think in just the artistic choice to do that, it was very immersion breaking. Like, here I am sitting in a theater and I went to see it in 70 millimeter IMAX. So I saw it in the pristine premium format that they wanted me to see it. And, you're in that dark theater, dark room, and that scene just broke the spell. Like, it pulled me out of the movie. I suddenly wasn't watching a movie anymore. I was watching Ryan Coogler's music video, where for some reason Irish folk music wasn't invited.
Yeah, I liked the Irish folk music scene.
Yeah, I did too.
Right. And then
invited.
One thing that was really great about it was that you very rarely get Irish bad guys. And it was kind of like, I really liked that. But the thing that I thought was frustrating about it was that if anyone goes into the movie and you know anything about like Robert Johnson or anything like that, I was hoping that it was going to be like the Hellhounds story, like the things. They're just vampires, I was hoping that there would be demons associated with blues singers, and you somehow summon these things through the music, which is kind of what they used to talk about.
And then for some reason, Buddy Guy was at the end.
I know. I know.
People were lecturing me after first, giving my thoughts, my honest feelings about the movie, that I wasn't as positive as everyone else. And they're like, "Oh, you just know nothing about music history." I'm like, "Do you guys not know who Buddy Guy was?" And they're like,
"Yeah,
that was the jazz guitarist." Not jazz, the blues guitarist at the end. Buddy Guy, what a legend! I was glad to see him, but why was Buddy Guy in this vampire movie? I think we got to get this banter wrapped up and get into who we're actually here to talk about today.
Yes, and who are we here to talk?
This week has been my pick. This one is influential to me, but also influential to many people and almost the entire industry. Was his name George Lucas is who we're talking about today.
Right.
Famous George Lucas, the guy who invented a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And so the most iconic characters in all of media and fiction.
Yeah. Was it created the most iconic villain?
Well, not just villain, how much? Weird question. If you had a lightsaber, what color would you want it to be?
Kind of boring. I think I'd want it to be green. I think I'd be kind of.
I agree. I'd probably want a green one. But anyway, George Lucas.
Green? Or orange, I don't think they make orange one.
Yeah. Anyway, George Lucas, he says, I've been accoladed and critically acclaimed so much and so loved, and yet I believe I've only made 3 movies.
Yeah, right.
At least he has his 6 film saga as 1 movie, but obviously not. But so predating Star Wars, he obviously, for our audience who don't know, he did American Graffiti, which is 70s style, just love of cars hangout movie for high schoolers and young adults.
Yeah, based in the 1950s.
Yeah, 1950s. I said 70s.
And then 70s
that, he did an experimental science fiction film for his, just out of film school thesis called THX 1138, which sadly I have not seen, but I know what the concept is. I don't know if you've heard of T.
I've never heard of it, no.
So it's one of these post-apocalyptic, dystopian sci-fi thrillers where, oh God, it's hard to explain. Maybe we ought to watch it before we explain it.
Yeah, we should probably watch it.
But anyway, what we're really here to talk about today is the George after Star Wars and how much of really a rebel he was. That he almost not single-handedly, but his vision for this epic space opera saga, changed film history and modern media forever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because they were almost, the first one was so close to not happening, right, on multiple occasions.
Even the people who made it, were making fun of it while they were on set.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is so silly. They'll just be a show straight to TV for Saturday morning kids. Even God bless him, Sir Alec Guinness, he didn't really have much faith in it.
No, he didn't. Apparently the thing that sold it for the cast was that obviously Darth Vader, his voice was just the guy's voice in the mask when they were doing the shooting, and they were really lame.
Oh, it's so funny. I forget his name, but he's actually a legend in the filmmaking stunt world.
Yeah,
they got that tall man to play Darth Vader. But yeah, his voice sounds so ridiculous underneath that scary black mask.
Yeah, apparently that guy got a choice. He said that he met George Lucas and he said, okay, you got 2 options. Either you can be this big fluffy bear thing that basically just follows around one of the main characters going, or you can be the main villain. And he was like, well, that's obvious.
That's an easy decision. You're either the big walking carpet or the main villain of this science fiction epic. Yeah, what a bold risk that movie was. Betting it all on complete unknown actors.
Right, yeah.
Well, they did have star power with Sir Alec Guinness.
Yeah, because he was the only one, right? Because all the rest of them were all unknown.
Well, they had Peter Cushing, who was famous from for playing Van Helsing in the old Dracula films.
Oh,
Christopher Lee, by the way, who is in one of the later Star Wars films.
He sure is. Peter Cushing, was he the
He played Grand Moff Tarkin. So he's just the commander on the Death Star. He's only in the first movie.
Yeah. Because and then Harrison Ford's first movie with him was American Graffiti. Right?
Yeah, I guess Harrison Ford was slowly becoming a star at that time, but it was really Star Wars that really launched him.
Yeah, well, he was working on the set, right? Wasn't that the story?
He was working. He was actually helping out with auditions. That's how Harrison Ford was first involved. He wasn't even intended to be cast as Han Solo. It's just they brought because him and George, Harrison and George had become, at least good friends and acquaintances, and he asked him for help to during auditions to feed lines to the other actors, and almost every time he played he read the Han Solo lines, And I guess he had just listened to enough auditions and heard Harrison do it so many times, and he got so good at it that, okay, this guy just might as well play Han Solo. And they had like other actors, famous actors from the time audition, like Kurt Russell. There's like an old audition tape of a young Kurt Russell reading for the part of Han Solo.
Really?
Could you imagine in some alternate timeline where Kurt Russell is Han Solo in Star Wars?
That's always a crazy rabbit hole to go down, like how Sean Connery
Probably be
supposed to
good,
play.
but Harrison is irreplaceable.
Yeah, because like it was, I like going down those kind of things. You find out like what could have been with movies.
But anyway, we're not talking about Harrison. We're talking about George Lucas today.
George Lucas.
George Lucas. I mean, off like the coattails of Star Wars, he himself didn't even have faith that it was going to be a success. I think like after the movie wrapped, he had some major health problems. He had like been in and out of the hospital due to stress making that movie, and yeah, it was falling apart. He said like, I got myself in a real mess. And so by the time it all wrapped, he said F this and went to Hawaii to the beach to vacation and just awaited the doom of the box office. And then a few days later, it's like, it's a hit. It's the biggest of all hits.
Wow. Yeah, it was the biggest of all, right? The first Star Wars movie.
I think adjusted for inflation, it's like in like the top 5 most successful movies ever made.
Wow.
This was only like 2 years after Jaws, which was also in the like top most successful of all time. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah, because George Lucas had like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I always got this kind of feeling with him that he had these really amazing ideas, but he was kind of a bit strange at executing them.
I think even people who worked with him might agree with that. I think George, here's my perspective. I think George is a great storyteller and great at structuring plot. However, his shortcomings come with the dialogue and writing dialogue. He even admits this himself. He once called himself the king of wooden dialogue. Yet Star Wars has some of the most like famous lines like in movie histories.
Yeah, he had some very interesting idea. I mean, we've talked about this a bit about like newer Star Wars movies, not really, and we used to kind of hate on the prequels, but what's cool about the Disney Star Wars movies is that they've shed light on the good ideas that George Lucas had in that prequel trilogy, and he had some really interesting stuff to say, which for me actually, because I didn't realize, because Star Wars still, I mean, even if you love it, it's a lot of fun, and kind of revisiting the prequels, and it's like, actually, this guy's got some pretty serious intelligence behind him.
Prequels are like a whole other era of Lucas that where he became much older and more mature, and probably had a more ambitious take on what he wanted to do with this space opera. Because like the first time around, he pitched it as like a 1930s, action serial based on TV shows he watched growing up, like from the 50s, like the science fiction B-movie stuff, like Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, that kind of thing. It has the famous opening crawl, just like on Flash Gordon. So he pitched it to be very much like that.
Is that where he took it from? Like he took that scroll from those?
Yeah, you watch like old Flash Gordon intros, and they all have that opening crawl.
Wow, yeah. I didn't know that. It also is kind of like those, not sci-fi, but the like the Errol Flynn movies and stuff, the sword fighters in the 50s. And
I'm of the crowd that I think Star Wars is more fantasy than fiction, fantasy than science fiction, because it really is like inspired by, has a lot of folklore influences. The story of the first movie is they got to rescue the princess from the giant black, like, evil castle.
Yeah, right. And also the Force is based on some Eastern stuff like the Tao.
Yeah, very religious undertones there. It really goes to show how like he really thought and envisioned this world where you had all these like alien races, all these planets, and they're being oppressed by this big dictator empire. Yet there's also this undercurrent of religion and the Force and mystery, and these Jedi that are reminiscent of samurai Ronin warriors.
Yeah, right.
He had really a wild vision for it.
He did.
It has a lot more thematic depth than I think people at the time really. I think people at the time really understood the thematic depth of it, but more than what I think people going in were thinking it was going to be.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I think he continued that even more so with the prequels. I mean, it was pretty common to hate on the prequel hate at the time, but I think since the Disney era and the Disney sequel trilogy, people have actually kind of revised and come to love the prequels.
Well,
Hey,
yeah, I
maybe
mean,
we didn't have it so
it's
bad.
interesting that
Because at
well, I
least it
think
was
that
one man's vision.
yeah, although it should be pointed out that the prequel hating that went on was never to do with the content. You know, it was to do with dialogue and the delivery of
And Jar Jar Binks.
and Jar Jar Binks.
I don't
Like,
hate Jar Jar Binks. I don't hate him as much as other people. Because, like, I mean, he made those movies for young kids, and I'm not gonna lie. When I was a young kid, I loved the prequels. They were the ones I grew up on.
yeah, right, yeah, me
But I've
too.
come to appreciate them as I got older because he wanted to get more political with the prequels, much more than the originals. There's talks in the first one about, you know, the Senate and, you know, Princess Leia is the senator of Alderaan, and there's like some political speak here and there, but it quickly gets like put out of the way to get it to Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon and, you know, fun and adventure.
Yeah.
But he really wanted to delve more into that for the prequels because I think George had aged a while and probably read a lot more books. And I don't know if you know this. When he went to college, I think he studied anthropology and social sciences. So he's actually a lover of all that stuff. And he read, what's this called? Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. He actually studied directly under Joseph Campbell. He actually cares a lot about, you know, the philosophical social sciences stuff. He just kind of wrapped it all up in this 1930s space opera.
That's what's interesting, actually, about the prequels are, ironically, I think, one of the best fictional representations of a republic becoming a dictatorship.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. As I've gotten older, I was going to say that too, but as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate it from that angle. And I've just watched Revenge of the Sith recently. It's this big, like almost Greek epic tragedy where you watch this republic turn into a dictatorship, like you said. And he's got that great line that Natalie Portman says, "So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause."
Yeah, right. Emperor Palpatine's...
He's so over the top, yet so like disgustingly evil.
I know. He's over the top, but he's so good. He's got all the best lines in there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Star Wars movie? Which one's your favorite?
To be honest, I really love the Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
I really love it. I don't.
So that's his favorite. I think that was because he said Return of the Jedi was the first one he watched.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I like about it is I don't know. It's just that there's so much in it that's really great. There's a few things that are a bit dumb, like the Ewoks. They're a little.
Yeah, the movie really slows down when the Ewoks show up.
It does, but I love the whole like guerrilla style fighting they have to do in the jungle. But I also love the feeling of like, because in the first one, Grand Moff Tarkin is like the main bad guy, and then in the second one, it's like Darth Vader is really the bad guy, and he's really scary, and you're like, oh my god, this guy. And then the third one, it's like, oh, you thought he was bad, you should meet his boss.
Yeah, you should meet his boss.
Yeah, and there's that amazing. I love when the Emperor shows up, and it's really sinister. Although my favorite part of all of the movies, and which I think is for me why it's difficult, because for me I think that I just love the emotion in Return of the Jedi, but for me the best movie is Empire, because it's like,
I think everyone objectively agrees that one's the best.
And the best part is like the whole slow build up on Hoth, and then it switches with the music with the Imperial fleet. It's like that gives me chills every time. Yeah,
you asked me depends on which day, but I'll have a different answer for which one's my favorite. It's usually always a toss up between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. It's always a battle between those two, which one is first or second. It really depends. But my third one is actually Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith is great.
I really like that one. I remember that was really, I remember I went to see it in the theater when I was a kid, because I had the unique experience of watching all of them in order. So it was like a big family thing. We watched the first and second, and then the third one was coming out in the theater right around that time. And then after the third one ended, it was like such a sad ending where he, you know, turns into Darth Vader. And so I was eagerly anticipating 4, 5, and 6, and they didn't let me down.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I appreciate
4 and 5 the most. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, is probably my fourth favorite. Mostly, it feels that whole second act where we get to the Ewoks, it really slows down. Where I really get interested is everything to do with Luke, Vader, and the Emperor. Like that's when that movie's at its best.
I love when he's like, my favorite line in Return of the Jedi is like on the whole thing with the Emperor who's like trying to convince him to join the dark side. And he's like, no, I'm a Jedi, like my father was before me. And then he's like, so be it, Jedi. I love that part. You know, his face changes and everything. And it's like, yeah, that's amazing. That's the thing. I think for me, the good parts in that movie make the Ewoks forgivable.
Yeah.
You know? And Ewoks are cute.
They're cute.
Yeah, I don't care what anyone says. They're space teddy bears, you know? Like, what's not to love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to talk. I didn't want this podcast to be so much about like the Star Wars films per se. I do want to keep it about George himself because he is.
Well, there's another big one after.
He's quite a pioneer, even more than a rebel. He's a pioneer artist. He ushered in this whole new style of filmmaking, this whole new technology where visual effects suddenly became, I mean, visual effects were always important all the way back to like the very first films made by like Méliès, the Méliès films, how they were more like almost like a magician's magic trick, but Star Wars was like the big leap forward where you can now it's like now anything is possible.
Right.
You know, we can even like go out into the stars and show aliens. I know Star Trek was, you know, predates Star Wars and so is 2001, but Star Wars definitely made it more commercial for a wide audience and made sci-fi not so much a nerdy thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I guess that's true because before Star Wars, there would have just been, what, like 2001?
2001 was probably the pinnacle, and Star Trek, I guess Planet of the Apes as well. But the Apes doesn't like really take place in outer space. It's very much
with the exception of 2001, they were all B movies, right?
Yeah, like, you know, renditions of War of the Worlds, you know, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Like, yeah, very like 50s B movie stuff. And monster flicks too.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Star Wars was like a whole new fresh take that suddenly created this whole big boom in demand for the genre. But he's also a pioneer on the technical side because the company he helped founded, ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, which is still doing groundbreaking VFX even to this day, you know, was started on Star Wars. And they were just a bunch of guys working out of a garage.
Yeah, right.
Building like spaceship models and shooting them on motion control rigs on blue screens over and over and over. And it took forever to get those VFX shots done. But when they finally come together, it was probably some of the most rousing cinema anyone had ever seen at the time. I would have loved to go back in time and watch what it was like back then. People first watched it and they see that tiny ship come over across the stars and then the giant Star Destroyer following it, and it's just like endless.
Yeah. That's and and one of the parts, I think it's in, I can't remember which movie it's in, but it might be in Empire Strikes Back when there's like when there's a huge fleet, the Rebel fleet. And one of the ships in the background is the bottom of someone's Nike shoe.
Is that for real? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's for real. Yeah, because they threw everything they had into it.
Oh goodness, they must have been like way far in the background, inconspicuous.
There was someone in the background.
Yeah, but that's just with the originals. He sought to do it all over again with the prequels from like the technical side by making them the first all digital movies to be shot entirely with digital cameras. Not Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace is the outlier of the three because it was still had to be shot on film for the technology at the time. But then for episode 2, it was the big leap there. Like this will be the first major Hollywood production shot entirely on digital cinema cameras, where like the highest resolution at the time was only 1080p. And now we have like 4K, 8K, 12K.
Yeah. It's amazing, right?
But now, ever since then, everything, almost all movies are shot entirely on digital. So it was just another big technical achievement from the folks over at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was that pioneering in the technical side. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but I didn't realize he was that influential.
Yeah. And of course, like the big, I mean, we complain about it now how movies overuse green screens, but it was pretty exciting for, at the time, because now you can just put an actor in front of a green screen. You don't have to travel. You don't have to transport an entire crew to the side of a volcano for some specific scene or sequence. You can just set it up in a studio with controlled lighting and have the image exactly how they want it, I guess.
Right.
So it was exciting, but ever since then, it's been used so much that I think audiences have kind of craved more real, tangible on-set locations, that kind of thing. So it's funny how it's been reversed, but still, it was a pretty grandiose achievement.
Yeah, really grandiose.
It can't all be credited to George Lucas, obviously, but he was definitely one of the pioneers that ushered in this era.
Yeah, we also have yet to talk about something which I don't think he gets much credit for, at least among sort of younger people, because I think Spielberg gets most of the credit for it. But his next project after Star Wars, which was...
where are you going with this?
Indiana Jones, man.
Right. I thought you meant like after he had finished Revenge of the Sith. Like,
no. Like after
he didn't make anything else after Revenge of the Sith. But yes, we got to talk about Indiana Jones, I guess, as next.
Yeah, because I don't like, like people don't, like you said, you didn't want to have it all about Star Wars, and I feel like, when people hear George Lucas, they obviously always think about Star Wars, but like,
yeah,
I don't think many people know he came up with Indiana Jones, but it was Indiana Smith originally.
Yeah, it was originally Indiana Smith. Actually, this brings back to that vacation he took after he had finished the first movie. He went on vacation to Hawaii on the beach and hung out with Steven Spielberg awaiting the box office results. And they were talking about what they were going to like do next. And Steven Spielberg, he said he always wanted to make a James Bond movie. And George was like, well, I got that beat. I've got this American character who's an archaeologist. And he goes around uncovering famous artifacts, religious artifacts, and, venturing through jungles with a bullwhip and a fedora. I'm like, okay, great. What's his name? He said Indiana Smith. It's like, oh, can we just change the name?
Indiana Jones. Yeah, so this is what I mean, though.
Great.
This is what I mean with George Lucas, is he'll have a great idea, and then he'll have something like Indiana Smith.
Yeah. No, George was definitely the one that came up with all the story ideas for all the 4 Indiana Jones films, obviously not the 5th one. But yeah, it was very much a partnership between him and Spielberg. They became good buddies.
Yeah. And then I guess, is that though? Has he had American Graffiti, Star Wars, Indiana Jones? Did he have anything else?
Well, that first like micro budget THX movie that he had, and he produced a few flicks afterwards. But unfortunately, I think because he got so much like public hate from the prequels, he kind of retreated from the public eye and didn't want to make films anymore because he had just been ridiculed so much.
Which is that's a real shame.
It's a real shame because, I mean, Star Wars was pretty big at the time, but it was like a very based off of, old fantasy folklore and Joseph Campbell, hero's journey, all that stuff he read about and learned. But George has always been, at least when you watch interviews or read stuff about him, he was actually very much an experimental guy. And he wanted to do what he called tone poems with very little dialogue, where like the movies would all be watched visually, but these wouldn't be like commercial movies at all. They're very like, he was very much like into like the art house stuff. So maybe he has continued to make these kind of movies, but he hasn't shown them to anybody, at least not the public. He probably shows them to his family and friends, and then that's it.
Right.
I mean, we can only infer because, he's probably very satisfied with his life. He's obviously, and he's, filthy rich from selling his company to Disney.
Oh yeah,
So
right.
he needs to make any more art, but I kind of miss hearing about him and seeing what he's gonna do.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy, and he's got a really kind of positive thing about him, right? Which is really nice, and I think, I know what you're saying. He's a missed figure, I think, and I think what's really great about him is that it's not just the kind of movies, the kind of Star Wars movies they make now, these kind of blockbusters, they want to make money, whereas he was trying to say something. He's like the true artist, I think, someone who tries to say something with what they do. And I mean, I've been having this conversation, and since we're doing this podcast about rebel artists, I think Hawkins said this great line. He was being interviewed in the 70s, and the interviewer said, if you could be remembered as someone who has made something or someone who has said something, which would you rather? Tolkien said, I don't think you can distinguish because the made thing, if it doesn't say anything, is worthless.
Wow.
It won't be remembered.
That's really powerful, actually.
It's really powerful, yeah. So it's not worthless, or I say it won't be remembered. Yeah.
So what do you think he was trying to say with Star Wars?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that,
there's a lot of things it says.
I mean, the original trilogy has a lot of this stuff about kind of the balance between, this
The
balance in the
classic
universe,
tale.
which is very like, it's kind of a fun way of approaching Chinese philosophy in a lot of ways. You know, the Force is pretty similar to the Tao, and like you said, the samurai kind of stuff is connected in there. But I think the first one actually, I think for me is a lot of the original trilogy for me is also about the redemption.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting. The most fascinating thing about Star Wars,
this whole saga is about the fall and redemption of Darth Vader, Anakin.
Yeah, and he's the
like Luke is the main character of the original trilogy, but it's really Darth Vader's story.
Yeah, right. And it's really clever that he's the chosen one. And he is actually the one that kills the Emperor in the end. And it's kind of this guy who is so scary, so sinister, and he's not even human, which is also symbolic too, because it's kind of how much evil takes away from you. He's barely even human.
He said where Obi-Wan says he's more machine now than man.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of like, you know, most people who've met evil men say that their eyes are dead. You know, there's something non-human about them, and it's kind of like, and so the original trilogy has a lot of symbolism, and it's kind of this interesting view on good and evil and belief as well, interestingly, because, you know, like Han Solo is really doubtful of, you know, say all that hocus pocus kind of stuff, and then he sees it with his own eyes. There's a lot of fascinating stuff in the original,
even like people like Christians and people who are religious even like Star Wars, because it's got the faith stuff and belief.
It's got all those themes in there, yeah. Rebirth and death, and, you know, this all this other kind of stuff, and rebirth, death, and redemption, temptation, the power of evil, and the resistance against. You can apply the Empire to many different things.
Yeah. And then he just totally subverts it all in his prequel trilogy. Takes a bold direction where it's actually this holy order of faith, of, you know, that they're supposed to be guardians of peace, and it ends up being through their hubris that they allow this emperor to rise and overthrow the Republic out of their own hubris and oversight. Like, that was such a bold thing to do that I didn't appreciate at the time.
Yeah, right. And you mentioned that he was older when he made those movies, and it kind of had this more worldly sense of these things.
Yeah,
So
I mean, around the time they came out, it was definitely the George W. Bush presidency era post 9/11. So obviously he had, at his age, had some strong feelings and probably had something to say.
Yeah. Well, there was an interview with him where he talked about how the empire of today is America, and it's very interesting. I mean, I would reckon that he probably got a lot of his inspiration from the Romans to begin with, because, I mean, it's the whole republic becoming a dictatorship is almost straight out of the Roman history. But yeah, he's got that sensitivity to him and that intelligence to do something like that, and that is a real commodity. And I mean, I don't know why he didn't get somebody else to do the dialogue writing. I mean, I don't know whether he was kind of a bit of a control.
Well, he was definitely a control freak, for sure. He wanted everything to be his way. But I think that kind of works to the film's benefit, because seeing what Star Wars has become since, it feels like it's lacking vision, whereas before it was always one man's vision. Yeah,
but the thing is, like, because Empire Strikes Back, it was partly so good because he wasn't really in the wheel, right? Like, it was his vision.
They hired Lawrence Kasdan, who also wrote the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
Great dialogue writing. And he also hired someone else to direct the actual actors in the scenes, because, I mean, even the actors in the original trilogy kind of make fun of George for always having the same note. After every take, he'd always say, okay, just do it faster, more intense, do it faster, more intense. And they're like, what does that mean, George? Like, you just keep saying that, and we're doing it faster, more intense, but you just keep saying it. So I think George took that as and then stepped back and let other directors in, because it was other directors that did Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And then I guess for the prequels, he wanted to take the helm. I think because he probably couldn't find anyone else that would want to do it, or he would ask Spielberg to do it, and he's saying, no, George, it should be you. This is your story. You know it best. You ought to do it. And if it hadn't been, we would have gotten something obviously very different.
Yeah.
I guess in some other timeline.
Yeah, some other time. Yeah.
We'd be remiss to talk Star Wars and not at least mention John Williams. George has even said, like, I don't think the movies would even work without John Williams' music. And he's right.
So that's an interesting thing, because actually that was one of the thing apparently that made it so timeless was the music they chose, and the sci-fi at the time all had this Blade Runner type. Blade Runner really works. The Vangelis soundtrack and Blade Runner is fantastic, but like most of those sci-fi movies at that time had really like
very
60s
synthetic, these aliens from outer space kind of music, yeah. Whereas Star Wars was very classical, like a very classical score.
John Williams is genius. I mean, like, how many scores did that guy come up with? And it's like, they're all iconic.
Yeah.
You know?
He turned the art, like, film scores to be as revered as some of the classical composers of, like, Mozart and Beethoven.
Yeah, right.
Like, so that's some of the best classical music written in, like, the past couple centuries, and they were just happened to be for movies.
Yeah, I think he's...
we'd almost have to give an entire episode just to John Williams.
Yeah, because I think him and Ennio Morricone are probably the two best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's many composers, but we don't have that kind of time to get into them. But I wanted to at least salute John Williams because, without him, the Star Wars films, I don't think it would even be half as good. You know what I mean? It would be even more cheesy.
Even more cheesy, yeah, that's right.
I remember I saw Revenge of the Sith recently because it came out. It just had its 20th anniversary, so they brought it back to the theaters. And yeah, some of the dialogue is very cringe, especially at the end.
Right.
Where Anakin's like, "You underestimate my power." Or don't make me kill you. It is very silly, childish dialogue. But when you have John Williams playing, Battle of the Heroes over top, it's suddenly like one of the most emotional, tragic endings of the entire saga.
Yeah.
Or Duel of Fates, like the fight with Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty, he's a very silent character. You don't know much about him, but as soon as you throw, Duel of Fates over top, it has this, religioso, cathedral chorus, epic battle.
Anakin, have the high ground.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, it is a bit.
That's just my opinion. Yeah, I think he should have at least gotten a screenwriter to write the dialogue.
And somebody pointed out
story concepts. George had brilliant ideas.
Yeah, but I can't remember who it was who pointed out that also Anakin goes from being on the edge to just straight up killing kids.
Yeah. It goes. It's a bit. His change is a bit too fast. I'm not gonna lie, but it works at least for me.
I feel like if that's the case, you were never really that on the fence,
Yeah, I guess it does a good job building that up in episode 2 as well, because there's clearly the darkness in him, and he has some, teenage angst, and he cared, and that whole 10 years of him training, then they didn't once go to free his slave mother. Come on,
yeah, right.
They knew that it had to backfire at some point.
Yeah,
but also to be fair, the Chancellor was the Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith, and you watch Phantom Menace again, as soon as they return to Coruscant, Anakin is just this boy who's never been off Tatooine in his life. Is just looking around, and then Palpatine's right there, and immediately just is one of the first people to initiate contact, and it's just the puppet master's starting right there.
Yeah,
and then obviously it all comes together in the third one, which I think was wise. The way he seduces him to the dark side by saving the ones you love.
Yeah. It's a classic, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always the... Yeah, I think anyone who says, that there's always this problem with the concept of the devil, that people are like, how is evil tempting? And then it's Star Wars is a great parable, I think, for why evil is tempting, the temptation of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really interesting. Well, do we have any closing thoughts on George Lucas?
I just wish he would come back and do something. At least make one last film. I'd be very interested to see. His visions are responsible to a lot of technological revolutions, which is mainly why I wanted to talk about George Lucas today.
Yeah.
Because he changed the filmmaking, he changed the business and the industry, but also like all of media after. He's a real pioneer. Not just a rebel artist, but a pioneer.
Yeah.
And remember, because history is made by the ones who don't listen.
Go forth and cause beautiful trouble.
That's a beautiful way to end it. All right, my friend, until next time.
Until next time, buddy.
Take care.
Ciao.
You've been listening to Rebel Artists Through Time. We created this podcast as our own act of rebellion against perfection, against silence, and to remind each other that we're part of something bigger. If something here sparked an idea for you, take it forward, share it, create from it, because that's what this is all about, connection across time through art. We're so glad you joined us, and until next time, keep creating.